What you're about to hear has never been told to Western media before. The testimony of North Korea's youngest female airline pilot. Someone who saw the regime from 30,000 feet and lived among Pyongyang's elite. She flew the same Beijing route where high-ranking officials smuggled luxury goods. Witnessed her decorated war veteran father die for reporting corruption, and escaped a sexual predator who could erase families with a single phone call. But the most revealing moment of her story isn't about what happened in North Korea, it's about what she discovered the instant she stepped into a South Korean airport. For more exclusive testimonies like this, subscribe and become part of our investigative community. These are the stories the regime doesn't want you to hear. In September 2024, a woman who had been the youngest female pilot in Air Koryo, North Korea's state airline, escaped the country. For 10 years, she flew over Pyongyang's skies. But after her father's unfair death and threats from a powerful party official, she walked away from everything and chose defection. Yet the biggest shock of her life didn't happen in North Korea. It came the moment she set foot in the arrivals hall at Incheon International Airport. A woman who once lived as part of the North's elite broke down in tears in front of a glass window. What did she see there? The story of why a 10-year veteran pilot collapsed, sobbing, at the sight outside that window. That's what I'm about to tell you. The first time I ever saw an airplane, I was 6. My father, Ri Chol-soo, was a senior captain for Air Koryo. My grandfather had flown in the Korean War as a military pilot, so it was natural for my father to follow. In Pyongyang, people envied pilot families. We lived in a special apartment complex in Daedonggang district, a neighborhood built just for pilots. The buildings were a little better there. Rations arrived on time. My mother worked as a nurse at Pyongyang's top hospital. My older brother, 7 years ahead of me, flew fighter jets in the Air Force. You could say our whole family belonged to the sky. When I was 9, I loved waiting by the front door on the days my father flew back from Beijing. He always brought something from his bag, chocolate or candy from abroad. Then he would ask me the same question. Sujong, do you want to be a pilot when you grow up? I never hesitated. Yes, Dad, I want to fly a plane like you. He would smile so wide when I said that. That's my girl. Of course you can. Being a woman doesn't change a thing. I held on to that dream. And with that dream, I entered Pyongyang Aviation University in 2014, when I was 21. In North Korea, a woman becoming a pilot is rare. Out of 100 students in my class, only 5 were women. Even fewer made it to graduation. The training was brutal. We got up at 5 in the morning for physical training. We spent the day buried in theory, simulations, and cockpit procedures. We slept 4 or 5 hours a night, at most. But I refused to quit. On weekends, my father visited me and said, "It's hard, isn't it? But I know you can do this." My mother sent food. My brother shared stories from the Air Force and gave me tips. My whole family carried my dream with me. After 4 years, in 2018, I graduated at the top of my class. During the graduation ceremony, I saw my father's eyes fill with tears. "Sujong, I'm so proud of you. You're the pride of our family." That one sentence meant more than any diploma. After graduation, I joined Air Koryo and began first officer training. Flying a real airliner was nothing like a simulator. Now I wasn't just moving a machine. I was responsible for hundreds of lives. And above the clouds, there was a feeling of freedom I can't fully describe. On my first solo flight as a first officer, my father waited for me by the runway. "Well done, my girl." He patted my shoulder. In that moment, I felt like the happiest person on earth. In May 2019, the year I turned 26, I was promoted to full first officer. I became the youngest female first officer in North Korea. The party wanted to show that off. The state newspaper, Rodong Sinmun, the North Korean equivalent of a ruling party paper, put my photo on the front page. The headline read, "The party's daughter, a new generation taking to the skies." There I was, smiling from the cockpit. My father held the paper in both hands and beamed. This is all thanks to the party's grace. We should thank the fatherland for raising you like this. That was what he said. But I knew the truth. I knew I owed everything to him. Around that time, I got married. My husband was an aircraft mechanic at Air Koryo. He loved airplanes as much as I did. After work, we walked along the Daedong River and talked about our future. Should we raise a pilot too someday? He joked. Sure, third-generation pilot family, I said. I really believed I had everything. A job I loved, a husband who understood me, and a father who was proud of me. I thought life couldn't get any better. But that happiness didn't last. I had no idea every part of my life, my family, my career, my future was about to collapse into hell. One morning in November 2023, I was in the pre-flight briefing room as usual. Suddenly, several men from the secret police burst into the room. The BOWIBU, North Korea's feared state security service. Comrade Ri Sujong, step outside. My heart dropped. In North Korea, a visit from state security is never good news. But I soon realized they weren't there for me. Where is your father, Captain Ri Chol-soo? That evening, my father was summoned to a party investigation committee. They said it was about a violation of flight regulations. They didn't say which regulation, when it supposedly happened, or anything else. My mother and I stayed up all night, waiting at home. My brother rushed back from his unit on emergency leave. We sat together in the living room, staring at each other's faces. Dad didn't do anything wrong, I kept saying. He'll be back soon. I told my family that, but my voice shook. 3 days passed, then a week, 2 weeks. He didn't return. We went to party offices again and again, begging for answers. The only reply we got was, "We will inform you when the investigation is complete." That was all. I was pulled off flying duties. They said, "You are family of a person under investigation." In North Korea, that alone is enough to destroy a career. One night, a pilot who had worked under my father slipped quietly into our apartment. He looked around and spoke in a low voice. The truth is, this is about Deputy Director Ri Myung-chol. When I heard the name, my head went white. Ri Myung-chol was a party official assigned to oversee Air Koryo's operations. Early 50s, round belly, always smelling of alcohol. The kind of man everyone pretended to respect and secretly feared. The pilot explained what had happened. Months earlier, my father had flown the Pyongyang-Beijing route. On that trip, Deputy Director Ri had loaded undeclared cargo into the hold. Smuggled goods, Chinese electronics and luxury items to sell on the black market. High-ranking officials did that often. It was illegal, but nobody dared complain. Nobody except my father. He found the cargo, and he did the one thing you're not supposed to do in that system. He reported it. It's a violation of regulations, he said. We can't ignore it. That was his mistake. He believed in rules. He believed right was right. Even in North Korea, Deputy Director Ri decided to destroy him. He filed a report accusing my father of a reactionary act. He claimed my father had listened to foreign radio broadcasts in the cockpit. It was a complete lie. But in North Korea, that accusation alone is enough to ruin a man's life. Listening to foreign radio is treated as anti-party, counter-revolutionary behavior. The pilot stood up to leave. Before he left, he said something that cut me deeply. Your father was too honest. He lived too straight in a crooked world. Those words tore my heart open. Since when did honesty become a crime? A month later, the official notice arrived. Ri Chol-soo has been convicted of anti-party activity and sent to a political prison camp. My mother collapsed on the floor. My brother punched the wall until his knuckles bled. I just stood there, empty. This was the man whose father had fought in the Korean War. The man who spent 30 years flying for the state. He disappeared with a single line on a document. 3 months after that, another notice came. February 2024. Ri Chol-soo died in the camp. No cause of death, no explanation, no body, no grave, just one sentence: deceased in camp. We were not allowed to see his remains. We were not allowed to hold a funeral. We were given only grief. From that day, my mother barely spoke. She sat in silence, sometimes whispering my father's name. My brother returned to his unit, but he was no longer the same. One night, he looked at me and said quietly, "Sujong, is this really the country we're supposed to die for?" His fists clenched as he spoke. We lost everything almost overnight. We were expelled from the pilot housing complex. Families of purged traitors have no right to live here. We were moved to a shabby home on the outskirts of Pyongyang. Our ration coupons were cut. In North Korean terms, we were downgraded from core class to wavering class. A coded way of saying we were no longer trusted. My flying career was over. Officially, my license was suspended for review. Everyone knew what that really meant. Colleagues avoided me. If we crossed paths in the hallway, they turned away. In the cafeteria, the seat next to me stayed empty. No one wanted to be seen near the daughter of a man labeled anti-party. At night, I had nightmares. I saw my father shivering in a cold camp. I saw Deputy Director Ri laughing. I woke up with my clothes soaked in sweat. "I'm sorry, Dad. I couldn't save you." I buried my face in the pillow and cried. For the first time in my life, I began to doubt everything. Was this really the fatherland we were told to love? A country where an honest man dies, and a liar thrives? I thought of that newspaper headline. "The party's daughter, a new generation taking to the skies." What did that even mean now? The party had murdered my father. That was when a small crack opened inside me. A crack that would one day split everything apart. But the worst was still ahead. 3 months after my father's death, in May 2024, I was taking care of my mother and working odd jobs at Air Koryo's office. They didn't fire me outright. Instead, they put me on paperwork duty for a fraction of my old pay. One afternoon, the phone rang at my desk. "Comrade Ri Sujong, Deputy Director Ri Myung-chol would like to have dinner with you this evening." My hand went cold. Deputy Director Ri, the man who destroyed my father. The coworker on the phone sounded cheerful. Must be a good sign. He's looking out for you. I wanted to say no. But in North Korea, you don't reject a party official's invitation. Refusing would be seen as defiance. My voice shook as I answered. "Yes, I understand." At 7 that evening, I stood in front of a high-end restaurant in Pyongyang. It wasn't really a restaurant. It was a private place where only high-ranking officials could dine. Ordinary people would never see the inside. Deputy Director Ri was already there. He waved as if greeting an old friend. "Sujong, you made it. Come, sit." He was in his early 50s, belly pushed against the table, his face shiny with oil and drink. The table was covered with food. Dishes ordinary Pyongyang citizens might never taste in a lifetime. He kept piling food onto my plate. "Eat. You must have had a hard time." Hearing that made my stomach turn. "You killed my father. Now you pretend to care?" He kept pushing a glass toward me. "Have a drink. It will help you relax." "I don't drink," I said, trying to refuse. But he insisted. In that system, saying no too firmly is dangerous. In the end, I took a small sip. He smiled in a way that made my skin crawl. "Sujong, to be honest." His tone changed. "I felt very bad about what happened to your father. He was a good pilot." My hands clenched under the table. "You framed him and sent him to his death. Now you say you feel bad. But there's something I can do for you." He slid his chair closer. I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "I can restore his honor. I can put you back in the cockpit. All it takes is one word from me to the party." My heart sped up. I knew this wasn't kindness. "What I'm asking is simple." His hand landed on the back of mine. I pulled away, startled. He laughed and grabbed my hand again. "You're a smart, pretty girl. I like you. Let's be good to each other." Everything clicked into place. Now I understood exactly what he wanted. I stood up. "I'm sorry, but I'm married." My voice shook, but I tried to sound firm. His face hardened. "Sit down, Comrade Ri. We're not finished." "There's nothing more to say," I replied. "I should go." As I turned toward the door, he yanked my arm. His grip was strong. Do you think you can ignore me? His voice dropped. The room went quiet. No one made eye contact. No one wanted to get involved. He leaned close and whispered in my ear. Do you know why your father died? Because I said one word. I can do the same to you. My blood ran cold. I could send you to a camp with a single report. Your sick mother? She'd end up in a labor brigade. Your husband? A traitor's accomplice. He let go of my arm and smirked. Think about it. If you stay on my good side, everything gets better. If not, well, you know what happens. I walked out of that place shaking. Outside, the wind off the Dadong River cut straight through my coat. I sat by the riverbank and sobbed. My father had died because he did the right thing. Now I was being cornered in the same system. What did I do wrong? All I had wanted was to fly. When I got home, I couldn't bring myself to tell my husband. If he knew, he would confront that man. And then all of us would die. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. His hand on mine. His threats. The next day, I noticed men following me. On my way to work. On my way home. Outside our building. At the airline office, rumors started to spread. They say she has something going on with the deputy director. It wasn't true, but truth didn't matter. In that world, the rumor was enough to stain me. A week later, deputy director recalled. Have you thought about it? I can't, I said quietly. He laughed into the phone. Fine. Don't say I didn't warn you. Your flight license is revoked. Permanently. I heard him turn pages. And your husband? I hear there was some carelessness in his recent maintenance work. We'll have to investigate. He hung up. I sank to the floor. I'd already lost my father. Now my husband was in danger. That night, I told my husband everything. Every word, every touch, every threat. He trembled with rage. I'll kill that bastard, he said through his teeth. I grabbed his arm. You can't. If you do, we all die. He held my hand tightly. Then we leave. We get out of here. I won't let that man lay a finger on you. What about mother? I asked. What about my brother? He shook his head. Your mother would rather see you alive somewhere else. Your brother too. At least one of us should survive this place. That night, I thought about something I had never dared say out loud. Defection. If I stayed, I knew how my story would end. In a camp, or in a grave no one could visit. I made a choice. If I was going to die, it wouldn't be in that man's hands. I would run. Once I decided to defect, I couldn't sleep. How do we get out? Who can we trust? What about my mother? In North Korea, defecting isn't just a crime. It's a death sentence. If you're caught, you go to a political camp. Your whole family can be punished under guilt by association. But staying felt like a slower version of the same thing. At home, my husband and I whispered at night. We didn't trust the walls. People said listening devices could be hidden anywhere. We have to reach China first, he said. From there, we find the South Korean embassy or a church. The problem was distance. Pyongyang to the border is more than 200 kilometers, over 120 miles. You can't take a train without a travel permit. Then my brother showed up. He had come on leave from his unit. As soon as he closed the door, he lowered his voice. I know what you're planning. My face went pale. If a soldier discovered a defection plan, he was supposed to report it. But instead, he said, go, get out. If you stay, you'll both die. There were tears in his eyes. I've learned what this country really is. Any place that kills dad and then tries to use you like that, that's not a country worth defending. He clenched his fist. I know a broker near the border. He moves people into China. It's expensive, but he's careful. Through my brother, we got in touch with a broker in Sinwiju, the border city facing China's Dandong across the Yalu River. We spoke briefly on a smuggled phone. 2 people, leaving from Pyongyang, my husband said. The broker's voice was flat. Fine. You'll need 3 things. First, money. Second, money. Third, money. He named the price 5,000 Chinese yuan per person. A small fortune in our world. We needed cash. I opened the small box where we kept family heirlooms. My father's wedding gift gold rings. A gold necklace from my grandmother. My father's old pocket watch. Every item was wrapped in a memory. But now they were our ticket out. At the Zhongmadang, the black market, I sold the gold in tiny pieces. I sold to traders who dealt in Chinese goods. They looked at me with suspicion. Where did you get this? One man asked. From my parents, I said casually. Old family pieces. My husband handed over his savings. My brother secretly sent money from his military pay. Over a month, we scraped together enough. All the while, Deputy Director Ri's men shadowed me. On the street, around the office, everywhere. At work, they kept pressing. Comrade Ri, the Deputy Director would like to see you again. I always had an excuse. My mother is ill. There's a family matter. I knew I couldn't stall forever. We set a date, May 15, 2024. That would be the day we left Pyongyang. The 4 days leading up to it felt like 4 years. The hardest part was my mother. I couldn't tell her. If she knew, she might break down. And if anyone overheard. So I went through the motions. I cooked for her. I gave her medicine at the same times each day. I listened to her call out my father's name in her sleep. Each simple moment cut me. This is the last breakfast I'll make for her. This is the last time I'll help her sit up. The night before we left, I sat by her bed. She had taken her medicine and drifted off. Her face had grown thin, but she was still my mother. I held her hand and spoke in my head. Mom, I'm sorry. Your daughter is leaving first. I can't live like this anymore, waiting for someone to destroy us. I'll come back for you someday. When the country changes. When the border opens. Even in her sleep, she squeezed my hand. I couldn't hold back my tears. Late that night, my brother came again. He handed us a small bag. There's some Chinese money inside. Also medicine and a map. When you get off the train in Sinwiju, go behind the cold noodle shop across from the station. The broker will meet you there. He paused. Be careful. The border guards shoot without warning. He looked at me, struggling to speak. Sujong, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect Dad. I couldn't protect you. I hugged him. None of this is your fault. Please take care of Mom. If they suspect anything because of us. Don't worry, he cut in. They won't touch me so easily. I'm still in uniform. I'll protect her. He turned to go, then looked back through the doorway. Live freely, Sujong. Fly wherever you want. That was your dream. The morning of our escape, I stood outside my mother's door. I wanted to go in and say goodbye. But if she woke up and tried to stop us, or if she cried out, I couldn't risk it. Instead, I slid a small note under the door. Mom, please stay healthy. I'll come back for you someday. 2 lines. Anything more would be dangerous evidence. At 4 in the morning, my husband and I left the house. We walked to Pyongyang Station in the dark. We didn't take a taxi. Taxis leave records. The streets were almost empty. It felt like walking through a dream. At the station, a few people were waiting for the first train. We stepped up to the ticket window and handed over forged travel documents. 2 tickets to Sinwiju. The clerk examined our papers, then slid 2 tickets across the counter. I could barely feel my hands. We boarded an old, rattling train. It wasn't much to look at, but to us, it was a lifeboat. Through the window, Pyongyang slid by. The Daedong River, the Juche Tower, the neighborhoods where I'd grown up. Goodbye, Pyongyang, I said silently. Goodbye, home. I didn't know if I would ever see it again. My husband squeezed my hand. We'll make it, he said. We have to. The trip to Sinwiju took 6 hours. The longer the train rolled on, the harder my heart pounded. Every time the conductor walked down the aisle, I was sure he had our names. Every time someone glanced our way, I wondered if they had been sent to stop us. We said almost nothing. We just stared out the window and waited for the hours to pass. Around 2 in the afternoon, we pulled into Sinwiju. It was the end of the line. Beyond this town lay the Yalu River and, on the other side, China. The station was crawling with guards, soldiers with rifles, security officers checking travel permits at checkpoints. We tried to move like everyone else. Not too fast, not too slow, not too scared. Across from the station, we found the cold noodle shop my brother had mentioned. The place looked old and tired. We ordered 2 bowls. We barely touched them. We waited until the sun began to set. The broker said he would come after dark. Daylight is too dangerous at the border. Around 8 in the evening, a thin man in his 40s slipped behind the shop. From Pyongyang? He asked. We nodded. Follow me. Don't talk. He led us through narrow alleys. There were no streetlights here. Just shadows. After 20 minutes, we reached a small, run-down house. You'll wait here until it's time, he said. We move at 11. Inside, several others were already sitting on the floor. They were defectors too. No one asked questions. The less we knew about each other, the safer we all were. Time crawled. I watched the second hand on my watch. 9 o'clock. 10. 10:30. My husband held my hand. Almost there. Just a little more. At 11, the broker stood. We move now. Stay silent. If you make noise, we die. We stepped out into a moonless night. Clouds covered the sky. He didn't use a flashlight. We walked by the faint outline of his back. After a while, I heard it. The sound of water. The Yalu River. This narrow strip of water was all that separated North Korea from China. The broker whispered, "The guards are patrolling. If they see you, they'll shoot." My legs started shaking. When we reached the riverbank, the water looked like black glass. It was wider than I imagined, at least 200 meters across, maybe more than 2 football fields. You'll have to swim, the broker said. About halfway, there's a shallow spot where you can stand and catch your breath. One by one, people stepped into the river. When it was our turn, my husband went first. I followed. The shock of the cold nearly ripped a scream out of me. It was May, but the night water felt like ice. There was no turning back. I pushed forward, arms and legs burning. My clothes grew heavy as they soaked up water. My breathing turned ragged. 10 meters, 20, 30. Suddenly, a beam of light swept across the water behind us. Stop right there, a voice shouted from the bank. Border guards. My husband squeezed my hand under the water. Don't move, he whispered. We lowered ourselves until the water reached our mouths. I tried to breathe quietly, barely daring to move. The beam of light sliced across the river. It passed just above my head. Who's there? A guard yelled. No one answered. The light moved slowly back and forth. I could hear footsteps on the bank. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. After what felt like forever, the light shifted away. The footsteps grew faint. My husband leaned close. Now, we go. Quiet and fast. We started to swim again. I had swallowed some river water, and my chest burned. I wanted to cough, but I held it in. Dad, please, I prayed inside. Help us. Just this once. 50 meters. 60. My arms felt like they were filled with lead. I could barely lift them. I gasped. I can't do this. Yes, you can, my husband whispered. Look ahead. That's China. Just a little more. I forced myself to look up. I could see the outline of the far shore. I dug down for whatever strength I had left. 70 meters. 80. My foot hit something solid. The riverbed. I can stand, I cried. My feet touch. We stumbled toward the bank. Mud clung to our legs as we climbed out of the water. We collapsed on the Chinese side, panting. The wind bit at our wet clothes. We shivered uncontrollably, but we were laughing. We did it, my husband said. We really did it. He held me close. For the first time in my life, I was standing on foreign soil. Not as a pilot, not as a representative of the regime, but as a refugee. We didn't celebrate for long. The broker appeared from the shadows. Save it. Chinese police patrol this area. We have to move. We staggered after him, our bodies numb. We walked for about 20 minutes to a small house on the edge of town. This is a Korean-Chinese family, he said. You'll stay here for now. As soon as I stepped inside and felt the warmth of the heated floor, my legs gave out. We were alive. That was all I could think. Crossing into China didn't mean we were safe. It meant we were now illegal. China sends North Korean defectors back. If we were caught, we'd be handed over. And then there would be no second chance. For the first week, we hid in the home of an elderly ethnic Korean woman named Mrs. Park. She spoke Korean with a Chinese accent. "Aigu, you two have been through hell," she said as we walked in. "Come, sit down." She laid out bowls of hot rice and kimchi. It was simple food, but there was plenty of it. "Eat," she said. "You can't run on an empty stomach." I lifted my spoon and started to cry. In the north, I had never seen so much food on one poor person's table. But more than the food, it was her warmth that undid me. We couldn't stay there for long. If word spread that she was hiding defectors, Chinese police would come. A week later, the broker moved us to another ethnic Korean village outside Dandong. We stayed there for 3 months. Those 3 months were some of the hardest of my life. We needed money for the next stage. From China to Laos, then to South Korea. The broker told us the cost. 10,000 yuan per person. 20,000 for the two of us. Another huge sum. I found work at a Korean Chinese restaurant. I washed dishes and cleaned from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. My hands were always wet. The skin cracked and peeled. Once, I had flown Soviet-built airliners to Beijing. Now I stood over a sink, scrubbing plates. At night, I stared at my swollen hands and cried quietly. My husband found work on a farm. He left before sunrise and returned after dark, covered in dust and sweat. "Are you okay?" I asked every night. He always said the same thing. "I'm fine. I don't regret any of this. I'd rather dig in the dirt here than live under that man's thumb." Work was physically hard, but fear was harder. Chinese police raided the village from time to time. When that happened, we hid in a storage shed behind the house. We held our breath as footsteps passed outside. If they found us, it was over. On top of that, we began hearing rumors. "The North Korean Security Service is sending people into China," another defector whispered. "They're looking for people like us." For someone like me, a pilot who knew flight routes and procedures, the danger was even greater. The regime couldn't risk someone like me sharing information. The broker warned me, "Never tell anyone you were a pilot. To everyone else, you were a nurse like your mother. Understand?" So I lied. When people asked, I said, "I worked as a nurse in Pyongyang." Only my husband and Mrs. Park knew the truth. At night, I still woke up shaking. In my dreams, Deputy Director Ri stood on the Chinese side of the river, pointing at me. My mother called my name from behind barbed wire. "Everything's okay," my husband whispered, holding me. "It's over now." But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. One day, Mrs. Park came to us. "You two want to go to South Korea, right?" We nodded. She leaned closer. "I know a Korean pastor. He helps people like you. He can get you there." Hope sparked in my chest. South Korea, a place where I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. A week later, we met Pastor Kim. He was in his mid-50s, with kind eyes and a quiet voice. He listened to our story and wiped his eyes. "You've suffered so much," he said. "God brought you this far. I'll help you reach South Korea." He had spent 10 years guiding defectors along an underground route. From China to Laos, Laos to Thailand, then on to South Korea. "It will take about a month to prepare," he said. "We need to arrange forged documents and local guides. In the meantime, keep working. Save everything." We worked even harder. My hands grew rougher. My husband's back ached constantly. But our hearts were lighter. For the first time, we could see an end to the tunnel. At night, we sat on the floor and talked about the future. "What's the first thing you want to do in South Korea?" he asked. "I want to visit the airport," I said. "I want to stand at Incheon and watch the planes." He smiled. "Then that's what we'll do." Sometimes, I stood at the window and looked up at the night sky. The stars above North Korea and the stars above China were the same. But they felt different now. Mom, brother, are you okay? I whispered. I'm going to South Korea. When things change, I'll come find you. Wait for me. In August 2024, Pastor Kim finally gave the word. Next Monday, we leave Dandong. On August 12, 2024, we got on a bus leaving Dandong. Pastor Kim had rented it. 5 other defectors sat with us. 6 lives bound together by fear and hope. We headed south, across China, more than 1,800 miles. For 3 days, we sat in cramped seats. We dozed sitting up. We stopped at rest areas when we had to. Every time the bus slowed near a checkpoint, my hands went cold. Chinese police boarded the bus several times. They walked down the aisle, checking IDs. When they reached us, we handed over forged ethnic Korean documents. We're here visiting family, Pastor Kim would say in Chinese. The officers glanced at the papers, then moved on. Each time they stepped off the bus, I felt my lungs start working again. After 3 days, we reached the Chinese-Laos border. From here on, we needed forged passports. Pastor Kim gave us ours. My photo was inside but with another woman's name. My hands shook as I approached the border booth. The Lao officer took my passport and stared at my face. He flipped through the pages slowly. My stomach twisted. Then he stamped it. Okay, he said, handing it back. I stepped inside Laos. We switched from the big bus to a smaller van. The van carried us to Vientiane, the capital. By the time we arrived, it was the evening of August 15th. A local contact met us there. He spoke both Lao and Korean. Tomorrow we'll go to immigration, he said. There, you will say who you really are and ask to go to South Korea. My heart pounded again. So far, we had hidden our identity. Now we had to reveal it. Don't worry, he said. Laos sends North Koreans to South Korea, not back to the north. The next morning, we stood in front of a government office in Vientiane. The building looked ordinary, but walking in felt like stepping into judgment. At the counter, my knees almost gave out. We're from North Korea, I said through the interpreter. We want to go to South Korea. The staff looked surprised. From North Korea? One asked. Do you have passports? We handed over the forged passports. He glanced at them and nodded. Wait there, he said. After an hour, they led us into a separate room. They asked questions. When did you leave North Korea? Why did you leave? How did you get here? I told the truth. About my father. About Deputy Director Ri. About the river and the broker, and the months hiding in China. They listened, took notes, and exchanged looks. Finally, one of them said, "We will move you to a protection facility. From there, you will meet officials from the South Korean embassy." A protection facility sounded gentle. In reality, it was closer to a holding center. Bars on the windows, crowded rooms, shared toilets. Still, for us, it was a waiting room for freedom. We spent 2 weeks there. Around 20 North Koreans were inside. Young and old, men and women. At night, we sat on the floor and talked. What's the first thing you'll do in South Korea? Someone asked. I want to find my kids. I want to call my parents. I just want to eat until I'm full. Everyone had a dream. On August 28, staff told us that people from the South Korean embassy were coming. 2 men in suits arrived, a diplomat and an intelligence officer. The interviews began. What is your name? Ri Sujong. Where are you from? Pyongyang. What did you do there? I hesitated. For months, I had lied. Now, I had to decide whether to tell the truth. My husband squeezed my hand. I took a breath. I was a first officer for Air Koryo. Their eyes widened. You flew planes? Yes. In 2019, I became the youngest female first officer in North Korea. They glanced at each other. Then the questions changed. What type of aircraft did you fly? 2 154s. I answered, old Soviet-made tri-jets. Did you fly the Pyongyang-Beijing route? Many times. How many runways does Pyongyang Sunan Airport have? 1, I said. Around 4,000 meters long, about 2.5 miles. I described the runway markings, the control tower, the departure procedures. Details only a pilot would know. The officers nodded. There's no doubt, one said quietly. You're a real pilot. Then they asked why I had left. I told them everything. My father's report about the smuggling, the false accusation, the camp, the death notice with no body, the dinner with Deputy Director Ree, his hand on mine, his threats. Halfway through, my voice broke. One of the officers offered me a tissue. You've been through hell, he said gently. When the interview ended, he looked me in the eye. Ms. Ree, the Republic of Korea will protect you. We will bring you and your husband to South Korea within a week. My legs gave out. I dropped into the chair and sobbed. We had been on the run for 5 months. We had traveled thousands of miles. We had risked everything. For the first time, someone with power had said, "We will protect you." A week later, on September 5th, we boarded a plane from Vientiane to Incheon. Not as crew, as passengers. The South Korean government had arranged a special flight. When I sat down and heard the engine start, it felt surreal. For 10 years, I had heard that sound from the cockpit. Now, I heard it from seat 23A. As the plane raced down the runway and lifted into the sky, I looked out the window. Laos shrank below us. We climbed above the clouds. I whispered, "Dad, I'm flying toward freedom now. Toward the kind of sky you wanted for me." Tears blurred the view, but this time, they tasted different. 4 hours later, the announcement came. We will soon be landing at Incheon International Airport. My heart hammered. Incheon, South Korea, a place I had only seen in forbidden images. On September 5, 2024, around 4 in the afternoon, the plane touched down. When the wheels hit the runway, tears spilled down my cheeks. South Korean soil. At last, my husband was crying too. We held hands, unable to speak. The plane stopped. The doors opened. We walked through the jetway into the terminal. The first thing that hit me was the air. Cool, clean, filled with a quiet hum. The hallways were bright and spotless. Air conditioning hummed. Moving walkways carried people along effortlessly. This can't be real, I muttered. We passed through a set of doors into the arrivals area. I took one more step. Then I saw it. Through the huge glass windows, the entire airfield unfolded before me. Dozens of aircraft were moving at once. Some were taking off. Some were landing. Some were taxiing to the gates. Within 30 seconds, one plane roared into the sky. Another touched down. Then another lined up to depart. I counted 4 runways in view. 4. In Pyongyang, we had 1. In North Korea, maybe 2 or 3 planes took off all day. Here, more than that moved in a single minute. And the lights. Even though it was late afternoon, the runways glowed. Taxiway lights, approach lights, bright markings. In Pyongyang at night, the airport was often dark. When there wasn't enough power, flights didn't leave. At times, the whole capital went dim. But here, the airport blazed with energy. It looked like it never slept. My feet stopped moving. My knees buckled. What was I doing all those 10 years? The thought slammed into me. I had flown for a decade. I had been paraded in the state newspaper as the party's daughter. I had believed I knew the sky. Yet what I'd really known was a cage. A small, carefully controlled box. Out there, right in front of me, the real sky was alive. Planes from dozens of countries moved like it was the most natural thing in the world. I put a hand on the glass. I realized that my entire career had been lived inside a lie. I had been a bird flapping in a cage, told over and over that my cage was the entire world. Something inside me cracked wide open. My husband wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Hey," he whispered. "It's okay. You're here now. This is your sky too." I cried openly in that crowded arrivals hall. Some people glanced at me. Most simply walked by. To them, this sight was normal. To me, it was like watching the world reveal itself in an instant. An airport staff member approached. "You must be the new arrivals from Laos," he said kindly. Please come this way. We were led to a separate room for new defectors. They took basic information, did medical checks, and explained the process. Soon, they said, we would be sent to a place called Hanawan, a government center where North Korean defectors learn how to live in the South. We stayed at Hanawan for 3 months. We learned new words. In North Korea, we said comrade. Here, people said Mr. and Ms. We learned how to take a subway, how to use ATMs, how to go to a hospital, how to file basic paperwork. At first, it was overwhelming. But slowly, the chaos turned into a map. The thing that shocked me most was the internet. With a few taps, I could see anything. News, maps, videos from around the world. I typed Pyongyang into the search bar. I saw images of streets I knew. My old neighborhood, the Daedong River. I sat in front of the screen and cried silently. I missed my mother. I missed my brother. I even missed the city that had betrayed us. After graduating from Hanawan, we settled in Incheon, not far from the airport. The South Korean government gave us some assistance to get started. My husband found work in aircraft maintenance. It wasn't glamorous, but it suited him. I wanted to fly again. But becoming a commercial pilot in South Korea would mean starting from zero. Taking all the exams, paying for training, competing with younger graduates. I was 34. We didn't have that kind of money. Instead, I found a job at an aviation education center. I taught children about flight, how planes stay in the air, what pilots actually do. I told them parts of my story. Teacher, I want to be a pilot someday, one boy said, his eyes shining. Whenever I heard that, my chest tightened, but in a good way. Then study hard, I told him, and never take your sky for granted. On weekends, my husband and I walk along the coast near the airport. Sometimes, we go to the public observatory where anyone can watch the planes. We stand together as jets line up for departure, engines roaring. Every time a plane lifts its nose and climbs, I feel something rise inside me too. Would I like to sit in that cockpit again? Of course, that desire hasn't completely left me. But I don't regret where I am. Being able to stand here, under an open sky, with no one watching me, no one controlling my speech. That alone is worth more than any rank or title. Sometimes, through old channels, a message reaches us from the north. Mom is doing okay, my brother wrote once. Don't worry about her. Those one-line updates make me cry all day. I want to hold her hand just once. I want to look my brother in the eye and tell him we made it. I've also heard news about Deputy Director Ri. He's still in power, still living well. Of course he is. At first, rage boiled in me. How can a man like that still sit at a table full of food, while my father lies in an unmarked pit? But over time, my view shifted. If it weren't for him, I thought, I might still be there. Still flying in that small, fake sky. It doesn't excuse what he did. He's still a monster, but somehow, his cruelty pushed me toward freedom. Now, in the evenings, my husband and I walk by the water near Incheon. We look out over the Yellow Sea toward the north. You can't see North Korea from there. But we know which way it is. Do you think we'll see reunification while we're alive? I ask. I hope so, he says. I really do. If that day comes, I know exactly what I'll do. I'll fly to Pyongyang not as a pilot of the regime, but as a free woman. I'll find my mother and brother. I'll visit my father's grave, wherever it is. I'll stand there and say, Dad, I'm finally free. Just like you wanted. Your daughter made it. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get to sit in a cockpit again. Not to serve propaganda, just to fly. Until then, I live quietly. I teach kids about the sky. I cook dinner with my husband. I breathe air no one is measuring or rationing. It's not a glamorous life, but it's free. 3 months have passed since I stepped into the arrivals hall at Incheon and stared through that window. The memory is still vivid. Dozens of aircraft in motion. 4 runways shining. Lights so bright they almost hurt my eyes. That view wasn't just a display of technology. It was the shape of freedom. The shape of a sky I'd never truly known. I don't fly anymore. My hands no longer rest on a control yoke. But that's all right. Now, I wake up without fear. I fall asleep without listening for car doors at midnight. I speak without weighing each word like it could kill me. And every time a plane climbs into the sky over Incheon, I whisper the same thing. Someday, I'll see a plane take off from Seoul and land in Pyongyang. No guards, no party, just people going home. Until that day, I'll keep living. I'll keep waiting. Dad, I'm doing my best. I found the freedom you wanted for me. And I promise, when that border finally opens, I'll come back. I'll stand by your grave and tell you this whole story. Please just wait a little longer.